All right.
Public school versus private school. This debate is discussed in living rooms all across America and throughout the country. In fact, according to a poll taken by greatschools.org, 1 in 4 parents are switching their kids from public to private or private to public as a result of the economy. Although a majority of America's students are enrolled in public schools, they do get a very poor rating. Today I will discuss the advantages of enrolling your child in a private school rather than a public school. As someone who attended a private school up until college, I think I have some great insight on this topic I would love to inform you on, using statistics and facts dealing with safety, academics, and the big controversy, tuition. The first thing I'm going to address is the safety of these schools. A top concern that parents have when sending their kids to school is, are they safe when they're not with them? Especially with all of the violent crimes that have taken place at schools in the last 15 years, such as Columbine, Virginia Tech, and Sandy Hook. According to a new government report, the rate of violent crimes against students is almost twice as high in public schools as it is in private. Private schools are orderly and safe, the kind of environment necessary for students to learn. The report touches on whether or not students feel safe. 21% of public school students and 4% of private school students ages 12 to 18 said street gangs were present at school. For students in urban public schools, that number jumped to 39% for public and only 5% for private. Uniforms are also enforced in private schools. These uniforms give the administration an easier way of knowing who's supposed to be on campus and who isn't. Rachel McMillan, a mom and a teacher, says private schooling has gotten the reputation of being safer for a more nurturing environment. I don't think, and she doesn't think that it's undeserved. I've taught in public schools and I currently teach at a private middle school. The difference between the two is nothing short of astounding. She says that the difference in how students act is related to parental involvement. Not saying that public school parents aren't involved in their child's school, but when they attend a private school, they have no choice but to be involved. In February 2012, the NCES, the National Center for Education Statistics, said the percentage of public school students who reported being victims of any crime at school was 4.6%, which was higher than that of private school, which was 1.1%. Put it another way, 4 times as many students in public schools rather than private reported being a crime victim at school. After establishing that a school is a safe environment, you want to be concerned with the academics. Is it too much? Is it too little? How can you talk? Private schools benefit students by fostering academic excellence and high achievement, educating the child in a value-based setting. In an article by Jeffrey N. Jones on Gallup.com, he states that 78% of Americans say children educated in private schools receive an excellent or good education. At least 6 out of 10 people say that private schools provide quality education. Public schools go lowest in perceived education. Also, in a report titled A Brief Portrait of Private Schools, the U.S. Department of Education had to say this about the academic performance of private schools in comparison to public. Private school students generally perform higher than the public school counterparts on SATs. These private school students also score higher than the national average of all students on test scores. Private high schools typically have more demanding graduation requirements than public high schools. 88% of private school students in 2011 applied to college rather than 57% of public school students. Private school students are more likely to complete a bachelor's or advanced degree by their mid-20s. Public schools must also follow the state guidelines set out for specific standards and assessment procedures. Private schools, on the other hand, can choose their curriculum and assessment model they wish. The freedom to design their own curriculum and avoid standardized tests can result in the higher curriculum for private school students. And now getting into the last issue between public and private schools, money. There's so much controversy over money and tuition costs in certain private schools. Some are relatively affordable and some are just really expensive. The good news for parents about public schools is that they cannot charge tuition. But the public schools are often complicated and underfunded operations influenced by politics. Financed through federal, state, and local taxes, the schools are part of a larger school system which functions as a government, and they must follow the rules set down by politicians. Although private schools generate their own funding, they can do as much as they want through tuition, private grants, and fundraising through parents and alumni. According to an article on greatschools.org, the benefits of private school come from their independence. They do not receive tax revenues, so they do not have to follow the same sorts of regulations and processes that govern public schools. This allows private schools to be highly specialized in offering advanced curriculum or programs geared towards special specific religious beliefs. When parents are paying their money for their child to attend a private school, they are paying for their child to receive the best education there is out there. So today we talked about how private schools are safer, their academics can be much more higher than public, and the tuition can, spending money on tuition for your child's education is one of the best choices you can do. Thank you.
Great, too, on their slides.
So Axel, tell us what you thought.
The thesis statement was good, was clear. I like how to move to every transition. And well, the only thing is she used a lot of footnotes. She reads too much. But I like it because she said the percentage of the people who go to private school who apply to college versus to private versus to public student. Yeah, but I like her approach.
Okay, well, structurally, I think everything is fine. You ID'd the topic at the beginning. You've got a very clear statement of what your goal is. There's a good preview that's laid out for us, so that all of the structural stuff is perfectly sound. Also, you've got a lot of good research that you're putting into the speech as well. There's a lot of data that you get into the speech in a variety of places. I do think that you miss the opportunity a little bit to get some emotional involvement in it and investment. You're just relying on the numbers to try and convince us about something. You know, talk about how much easier it is for a kid to learn when they don't have to worry about getting beat up by the gang in the bathroom at recess, or you know, how better it is for a parent to feel comfortable about leaving their child at school knowing that it's more secure there. Or give some examples when you're talking about the curriculum at the end that's going to be different and innovative instead, and describe some of the drudgery that goes on pardon me, with all the testing issues in comparison to what they might be doing in some classroom at a Catholic school or something like that. So that what you're talking about isn't just a bunch of numbers, but it's something that comes a little bit more vividly to life. I think that that's the one spot when it comes to content that you were a little bit problematic on. On delivery, you've got a few things that you need to work on. First of all, you are in a hurry. You are rushing through this presentation and you're reading. I mean, everything's understandable, but I'm sitting there. People don't talk like this. You know, you sound like you got to get this over with as quick as possible. And it's not that you're not understandable. It's not that it's there isn't some variety in your voice, but it just sounds like I got to be done. You know, and I think that leaves a negative impression. You need to pace yourself a little bit more and slow down and talk to the audience. And speaking of talking to the audience, you need to look at us. You are reading. I'm yelling at people. I'm sorry, folks. I don't mean to be a prig about this. I know this is one of those things that everybody knew in a high school public speaking class years ago. You need to make contact with your audience, and reading in front of the audience is not the same thing. This is what we talked about the first couple of weeks in class, that the success of a speech is often not dependent upon all the work that you've done and all the research that you've done. It's dependent on the relationship that you create with the people that you're talking to. And you're not attending to the relational dimension of the message. You're paying attention to the content dimension, and you need to worry about the relational dimension of the message. And it's failing you on the eye contact issue. It fails you a little bit with the speed at which you're presenting, and the movement while you're speaking. So, I like a little bit of movement. I think we've talked about it before. The walking the transition thing is a good idea. Your movement doesn't seem to be connected to what you're talking about. It just seems to be sort of random. It looks somewhat natural, but it seems, like I said, disconnected from what's going on. And you need to be thinking about, how is this going to connect me with the audience, as opposed to, well, I'm just comfortable moving over here to this particular spot. And it just feels a little bit like you're disengaged as a consequence. I did think that you had a really solid summary of your argument. If I'm just listening to the content part of the argument, I think you do hit that really well at the end. It's like, all right, so if you're looking for something that's safer, gives you a better chance to learn, and is going to give you more bang for your bucks, private school is where you want to go. I mean, that you do a good job summarizing that, reminding us what the point was that you were trying to get across. I like that. But you're missing the chance to sell it, and selling it is not just about the content. It's about you're relating to people also. All right.